This is your lesson on the signposts. So notice and note signposts are basically the reading strategies that I'm going to teach you so that you'll be able to make meaning out of anything you read. The real difference between someone who enjoys reading and is a fluent reader who enjoys it and people who struggle with reading is really, are you good at noticing the signposts? Can you use all the real reading strategies? How many tools do you have in your toolbox, right? So notice and note signposts are those tools. These are markers. They can help guide you along the path to understanding as you read fiction. When you notice them, stop and take note. For this class, you're not going to need to turn a paper in, but you might have a notebook so that you can write things down. And as you get lectures like this, you might take notes. You will be able to use those notes on your tests, and it'll make them easier. All right, so I'm going to go in order of the signposts you're going to see more often, and the ones that we see left off are at the end. But actually, in The Hate You Give, we see memory moments right away. So that last signpost we're going to cover in this lesson is really going to show up in chapter 2 a lot, all right? So the first signpost is the contrast and contradictions. When we see this one, we want to stop, notice, and note. When you're reading and a character says or does something that's opposite or contradicts what he's been saying or doing all along, you need to stop and ask yourself, why is the character doing that? Now, you really want to think about it and not just stick with your first thought, but maybe think further. This is why classroom discussions are so helpful and powerful. And you can always come onto the Google Meet class so we can have those conversations. But you want to ask yourself, why is the character doing that? And the answer could help you make a prediction. It could help you make an inference about the plot and the conflict, and it will certainly tell you about the character and the characterization. All right. Another signpost is what we call a tough question. Sometimes when you're reading and the character asks himself a really difficult question, you need to stop and ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? Right? And the answer will tell you about the conflicts that might give you ideas about what will happen later in the story. At one point in chapter 3 of The Hate You Give, Star is going to ask herself one of these tough questions, and she's going to wonder if she has it in her to be like a whistleblower or someone who speaks truth to power. And so, look for that, right? Look for that moment and know that it's a tough question, and then ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? All right. Another signpost is what we call an aha moment. And suddenly, sometimes when you're reading, a character realizes or understands or finally figures something out, right? And you want to stop and go, wait, how might this change things, right? If the character figured out a problem, you probably just learned something about the conflict. If the character understood a life lesson, you probably just learned about a theme. Star has an aha moment in the middle of chapter 1 in realization of why she's actually in that location and why she actually came to that party. And you want to stop and ask yourself, how might this change things? All right. Another one we're going to get, we'll see this in chapter 4, is a word from the wiser. When you're reading and a character who's probably older and a lot wiser takes the main character aside and gives them real serious advice, you need to stop and pay attention to that. And ask yourself, what's the life lesson? And how might this affect the character, right? What is the real lesson here? Whatever the lesson is, you've probably found a theme for the book, for the whole story. All right. Another one that we see a lot in literature is called again and again. This is when you're reading and you notice a word or a phrase or an object or a situation that gets mentioned over and over and over again. And you want to stop and ask yourself, why does this keep showing up again and again? The answer will tell you about the theme and conflict, and it might foreshadow what will happen later, right? So nothing is by accident, right? In fiction, fiction is on purpose, every single thing. So if a word or a phrase or a situation or even, like it raining keeps happening over and over again, there's a reason for that. And you want to ask yourself why. What does it mean? All right. And finally, memory moment, which we're going to start chapter 2 with a memory moment when we get there. So look for that one. When you find it, you'll know it because you're reading along and the author interrupts the forward flow of action to give you a memory, right? It's a literary technique called flashback. But in Signposts, we call it a memory moment, same thing. When you find it, you need to stop and ask, why might this memory be important? Why is it showing up now, right? Because authors, again, they're on purpose. Every little detail is for a reason. And so why might they interrupt the plot with a moment like that? So the answers are going to tell you about the theme, the conflict. They might foreshadow what will happen later in the story. Anyway, we're going to use these signposts in order to help us understand everything that we read, right? So you will see which each of the beginning chapters of the book, I will do an instructional read aloud where I'm thinking out loud and using these signposts in addition to other reading strategies that I will teach you or have taught you. And so that is what you're doing in this course. And when a test comes along, I'm going to expect you to know, what is a memory moment? What's the question you ask for a memory moment? And how can I identify one? Right? So this is the content of the course, is not just the book, but also how to read this book and any other book you may choose to read. I hope that was helpful. Good luck.